YouTube. Today we are reacting to 6 times police body cams captured something terrifying. This was streamed live on Twitch and TikTok, so before to follow me there, I am gonna put it up on the screen like magic.
On the evening of February 26th of 2021, the uptown streets of New Orleans, nothing yet had suggested that a Tulane University police officer named Martinez Mitchum had only hours left to live, or that the man who would kill him had already crossed paths with 2 other officers earlier that same evening, close enough to touch and close enough to search, and he had been let go.
That's crazy. The footage and stories presented in this video contain real events, disturbing situations, and material some viewers may find unsettling. Viewer discretion is advised. There you go, guys. You've had your warning.
The day had begun to unravel long before dusk.
Gambling!
1:30 that morning, John Shallerhorn had been thrown out of Harrah's Casino near the foot of Canal Street for refusing to wear the face mask required of patrons during the pandemic, insisting to officers on the scene that the rule amounted to discrimination and he was cited for trespassing rather than arrested. It was the kind of encounter that could have ended differently, a small early warning that something about the day was already off its axis, though nobody watching could have known what it foreshadowed. By late afternoon, 2
Imagine
New Orleans
getting
Police
kicked out
Department
of
officers,
a casino.
Alyssa Van Loo and her partner Brianne Larson, were patrolling in separate cruisers near Annunciation Street, responding to a report of armed subjects in the area. Though the caller had given no physical description to go on, they were still searching for whoever had made that call. When Shallerhorn honked his horn 7 times to flag them down, he walked up to Van Loo's cruiser with something black and shiny bulging from his waistband and asked her to come with him to his parked car nearby.
Why would you walk up to a police car with a gun like bulging out of your waistband? What the fuck are we doing?
Explaining that a friend was waiting in the back seat and that the 2 of them had been discussing spiritual matters he wanted her opinion on. Van Loo told him she and her partner were tied up on another call and didn't have time to talk.
And I wanted to ask for questions. I have my buddy here in the back seat. And we were talking about the spirit, and I wanted your opinion.
Okay, we're actually on a call right now, though.
He's asking their
Began
opinion
giving
on something?
directions to his home just up the street, suggesting the officers stop by once they were free, but Van Loo cut him off before he could finish, telling him they'd swing by depending on how things developed. He said he'd wait for them. He didn't. He got back in his car and drove off, and the 2 officers moved on to keep searching for the armed subjects they'd been called.
Oh yeah, guys, I'm gonna wait for you, alright? Alright, see you later, guys. Like, what? What? I just muted my mic accidentally, but what the fuck? Why are you telling people you're gonna wait for a month and then just dipping? What?
Out for in the first place. Body camera footage would later show the officers discussing the strange remark about the spirit as they walked the block, assuming it was some reference to religion, and debating whether it was worth circling back to find him, since they didn't even know his name. One of them reasoned that if it wasn't connected to a crime, they weren't obligated to go back, and they left it there. Within the hour, Shallerhorn was in the parking lot of George Washington Carver High School, where he robbed a man sitting in his car of a medallion and chain before walking toward the gymnasium,
A medallion?
where the Carver basketball team was hosting a playoff game against Warren Easton. Shallerhorn tried to enter the game without a mask, but was stopped at the door, sparking an argument. When he struck a staff member, Officer Martinez Mitchum, working security, stepped in to escort him out. Shallerhorn pulled a handgun and shot Mitchum twice.
What?
The officer later died.
Over being told to put on a mask mid-pandemic? That's fucking crazy. Oh, yo, sir, so you know that, like, law that's, like, here to protect us all during this, like, pandemic? You know, the thing that's, like, really easily spread? Yeah, you know how you're, like, refusing to put that on? Can you come with me? Fuck it, bang, bang, bang! Like, what? Why, bro? We're pulling a gun because you're being asked to put a mask on and then being escorted because you refuse to. Like, what?
Died at University Hospital, while Shallerhorn surrendered and was charged with first-degree murder and armed robbery. The tragedy is made even harder by what came before. Less than an hour earlier, 2 officers had encountered Shallerhorn but lacked legal grounds to detain or search him, allowing the deadly chain of events to continue. The professor stopped short of blaming Van Loo and Larson for the decision to let Shallerhorn walk away, acknowledging that from where they stood in the middle.
Yeah, but that's not their fault. He just seemed like a guy who was like, yo, can you guys answer this question for me? Before, like, all that shit. Because he was literally just going up to him going, yo, we have a question. And then it was like, oh, wait, we can't answer you.
Of another assignment. Faced with a man who seemed erratic but not obviously dangerous, the most reasonable read of the moment was that they'd encountered someone unwell rather than someone plotting violence, and that there was little in that.
Yeah, but you can't expect to, like, you can't expect them to know that he was gonna go, like, shoot one of their co-workers. Because no one expects that. When someone comes up to you being like, yo, can you answer, like, a spiritual question for us? Don't expect them, like, a few hours later to shoot your fucking coworker. Overreaction, not gonna lie. Yeah, no shit, bro. No shit, it was an overreaction.
That is, in some ways, the hardest part of the story to hold on to. Nothing about the encounter looked like the version of it that came into focus only afterward, once the video was studied frame by frame with the knowledge of what followed. In the moment, it looked like exactly what officers are trained to size up and move past dozens of times in a single shift. A stranger with an odd manner and an unusual request, nothing in it rising to the level of cause. Mitchum, for his part, never had even that much warning. He wasn't the officer who'd stood near Shallerhorn an hour earlier, hadn't seen the bulge at his waistband, or heard him talk about spirits in the back seat of a parked car. He was simply the officer working the door that night.
Bro, it's so fucking stupid. Cause, like, this guy didn't know. This is why I'm, like, so against, like, guns and shit in, like, America. Cause, like, instantaneously someone could have like a change in mood and be like, yo, I don't fucking like you, and just pull out a gun and just end your life within like 2 seconds.
Watching a man get turned away for not wearing a mask and stepping in the way officers do when an argument turns physical, without any reason to expect that the man in front of him was already by then 3 encounters deep into a day that had been sliding toward violence since before dawn. His colleagues down the street had brushed against the edge of it and walked away. He stepped directly into the middle of it at the one moment nobody could have flagged in advance, and it cost him his life.
Yeah, but that's not exactly like his co-worker's fault. That's just like his own. Well, that's not even his. That's like the guy's fault. The guy who shot him, not the police officer's fault. Because like his co-workers didn't know that he was like of any danger. They didn't know that he got removed from the casino and shit. It's just stupid. Because any motherfucker can be like getting like escorted out, and then they can turn around and be like, yo, fuck you, I don't like you, and just shoot your head off.
Now, if you're still watching, take a second to think about what you just saw. These aren't movie scenes or scripted moments.
Yeah, no
Every
shit.
case in this video happened to real people, and in each one, a routine police shift changed forever in just a matter of seconds. Now, if you enjoy well-researched, real body cam stories like these, then what I want you to do is subscribe to the channel.
Yo, guys, go subscribe to him. Nightmare Feelings. He's a goated YouTuber. I've reacted to some of his stuff before. It's fucking amazing.
Before the footage was ever released to the public, it existed only as a name people recognized, attached to a story most had already half forgotten. A pop star pulled over one summer night in the Hamptons, a DWI charge, a plea deal, and then, for the better part of 2 years, silence
Who the fuck
on
is this
what
guy?
the actual encounter looked like. That silence ended when Sag Harbor Police finally released the body camera footage from Justin Timberlake's 2024 arrest.
This is Justin
closing out a
Timberlake?
legal fight that had run nearly as long as the case itself. The footage was released by the Harbor Police Department to media outlets, including the Associated Press, and shows an officer stopping Timberlake on the night of June 18th, 2024, after seeing him veer to the left and fail to stop at a stop sign. The stop happened in the village center of Sag Harbor, one of the affluent former whaling towns that make up the Hamptons, roughly 100 miles east of New York City, and a favored summer destination for celebrities looking to get away from the city. What makes the footage notable isn't just the arrest itself, but how long it took to actually see daylight. Timberlake's legal team fought to keep the video from being released, arguing it captured him in an acutely vulnerable state, and that making it public would serve no legitimate purpose beyond embarrassment. A Long Island judge initially sided with that argument enough to order police not to release anything until the court could review the matter further, and the fight over the footage stretched on for roughly 18 months before both sides finally reached an agreement to release a redacted version. Village officials...
So you're fighting for over a year to hide, like, a thing, like, footage of a celebrity being pulled over. Like, what? How bad is the footage of, like, the guy getting pulled over that you need to fight for over a year to fucking, like, try stop them from releasing it to the public? What the fuck?
Through their attorney, said all along they had simply been trying to comply with New York's public records law, noting that any footage from their department goes through the same review and redaction process regardless of who's involved, balancing safety and privacy concerns. When the body cam footage was finally released, it totaled nearly 8 hours, though most attention focused on the initial traffic.
Wait, 8 hours of body cam footage? As in, like, it's the entire day of the officers? Or... like, it's 8 hours just with Justin Timberlake. If it's 8 hours with just Justin Timberlake, that's fucking crazy.
Stop. Officers noted bloodshot, glassy eyes, the smell of alcohol slowed speech, difficulty dividing attention, and unsteady footing. Throughout the encounter, Timberlake
it was a
remained calm
DUI.
and cooperative, saying he'd had one martini and was following friends home. He even mentioned he was on a world tour before identifying himself as Justin Timberlake, but the officers simply requested
you get pulled over. Yeah, I'm on a world tour right now. Like, why does that matter? You fucking... Alright, so, do you know how fast you're going? You smell like alcohol, you've got red and glossy eyes. I'm on a world tour right now, man. Like, what? Why is that relevant?
His identification and continued the investigation like any other DUI stop. The field sobriety tests became the most revealing part of the footage. Timberlake politely followed instructions as he struggled to track the officer's hand, walk heel to toe, and balance on one leg. At one point, he admitted the tests were harder than expected and said his...
How hard do you expect DUI tests to be? Like, they're gonna prove whether or not you're sober. They're not hard if you're sober. If they're hard, then you're inebriated and shouldn't be under the control of a vehicle, I feel like that's just common sense, though.
Heart was racing, highlighting the very human side of the encounter. He ultimately declined to take a breathalyzer test altogether, a refusal that triggered an automatic suspension of his New York driver's license,
that's reasonable.
regardless of how the...
Why would you refuse to do a breathalyzer? If you're saying, oh, I've only had one martini, why would you refuse a breathalyzer?
Criminal case itself would eventually be resolved. Once officers decide to take him into custody, the footage shows a brief moment of confusion play out around him. A friend who'd been out with him and her husband that night arrives on the scene as officers are handcuffing him, and while Timberlake himself doesn't resist the arrest, she becomes visibly upset, pleading with officers on his behalf.
No, please don't take my celebrity away from me. No, please, but he's a celebrity. He's on a world tour. Please don't take him, please. Like, what?
Once he's placed in the back of the patrol car, he can be heard asking simply why he's being arrested. And later, once...
Why are you arresting me when I'm refusing a breathalyzer? Why are you doing this? Why are you... Like, when... I can't speak English. Holy shit. I might need a breathalyzer. God damn. Why are you taking me in when I'm refusing to cooperate with police officers? Why are you doing this? Like,
He's
what?
told at the station that he'll be held overnight, reacting with a mix of disbelief and resignation at the idea of spending the night in custody.
Right.
The legal case
Sorry.
had already concluded before the footage was released. Timberlake pleaded guilty to a reduced non-criminal driving while impaired charge, receiving a fine 25 hours of community service and a requirement.
Imagine you're like walking down the street or some shit. You look over, you see fucking Justin Timberlake picking up like fucking rubbish. Fuck it. Justin Timberlake?
To record a public safety message. He acknowledged his mistake and warned that even one drink is too many before getting behind the wheel. What makes the footage compelling isn't mystery or controversy, but its ordinariness. Despite his celebrity, the video shows him experiencing the same field sobriety tests, the same uncertainty, and the same consequences that any other driver would face.
Why would he not face the same consequences? Like, oh no, this guy's on a world tour. Like, it doesn't matter. He's still driving under the influence, which, believe it or not, it's against the law. Oh my god. Like,
During
what?
a routine DUI stop. Before dawn on Interstate 40, just outside New Mexico, the highway sat quiet, the kind of stillness that comes only in the hour before a shift change, when traffic hasn't started and the desert hasn't yet caught its first light. It looked like an unremarkable morning, the sort that ends in a coffee run and nothing more. It was March 15th, 2024, just after 5:30 a.m. when a 5-year veteran of the New Mexico State Police pulled his cruiser up behind a white BMW parked along the shoulder. Officer Justin Hare had been with the department long enough to know the shape of a routine call, a stranded driver, a flat tire, someone who needed a hand getting back on the road before the sun came up. Nothing about the scene suggested it would be anything else.
Okay.
The man standing beside the car introduced himself as Jeremy Smith.
Yo, already, we're like 2 seconds into this one. I can already tell this guy's under the influence of something, whether it's fucking drugs, alcohol, whatever. Why is he like fucking... He's like walking up like a zombie from like The Walking Dead, bro. He's very clearly not sound enough to like drive.
From where Hare stood, he looked exactly like what he claimed to be, a stranded traveler with a flat tire and nowhere else to turn at that hour. He wasn't. Hare spoke with him briefly, the way officers do at the side of a highway before dawn, offering to drive him into town rather than leave him waiting on a tow truck in the cold. He asked Smith to step toward the front of the patrol vehicle. Smith didn't move that way. Instead, he drew a stolen Taurus 9mm handgun and fired.
Oh,
Hare
shit.
went down in the driver's seat of his own cruiser. Smith moved around to the other side, fired twice more, and then climbed in beside him, Hare still inside the vehicle, and drove off into the dark New Mexico desert for several...
What? So you're having car issues, supposedly, and then a police officer pulls over and is like, yo, I can, like, drive you into town if you want, so you're not out here waiting for a tow truck. Fucking bang, bang, bang! Like, what? Why are you shooting someone when they're going, yo, I can drive you into town if you want, you know, like, so you don't have to wait here in the cold for a tow truck, yeah? Like, what the fuck? Why are you shooting him?
several minutes, a marked state police cruiser moved down the highway carrying a dying officer in the driver's seat, driven by the man who had just shot him. Eventually, 7 miles from where the shooting occurred, Smith pulled over, left Hare on the roadside, and kept driving. What Hare couldn't have...
So you drive for a few miles, then pull over, drop off the police officer that you killed, who you was driving next to, and then take his car again. What?
Known in those final minutes, what nobody at the scene that morning had any way of knowing was what Smith had already done in the days before. 2 days earlier, in South Carolina, he had abducted a paramedic named Phonesia Machado IV. He killed her, took her BMW, and used it to begin a cross-country that carried him through.
Oh, so he killed like an EMT and then took their car, and then he had the car issues in her car So then the police officer pulled over and was like, "Yo, I can take you somewhere." And because it wasn't his car, he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna have to like kill this guy." And then he stole the police car, which has cameras all over it. Like, what?
Through 6 states in a matter of days: Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, and finally New Mexico, where he ran out of road and pulled over on the shoulder of I-40 with a flat tire. Hare had no way of connecting any of that
This
to
is
the man
fucking
he'd
crazy.
stopped to help. He saw a stranded driver at the side of the highway before sunrise, and he did what officers do in that situation. He stopped. It took 2 more days after the shooting for Smith to be located. A gas station clerk in Albuquerque recognized him from police alerts that had circulated in the aftermath and called it in. Smith was taken into custody, wounded in the process of his capture, and in April of 2025, he was sentenced to life in federal prison.
Fucking good. He's killing an EMT, stealing their car, and then because he's been caught with the EMT's car, he's killing a police officer for it. Like, what the fuck, man?
Without any possibility of parole, Officer Justin Hare left behind a pregnant wife and 2 children. His final act was stopping to help a stranded driver
He had a family? Bruh, that's fucked.
before dawn, unaware the encounter would cost him his life. Officer Jamal Mitchell made the same choice under different circumstances, approaching someone he believed needed assistance. Though their stories unfolded miles apart, both were driven by the same instinct to help, and in both cases, that ordinary decision became the last one they ever made. Police body camera footage has produced some genuinely strange moments over the years,
Yeah, no
and 2
way.
incidents captured on officer cameras, one in Duval County, Florida, and one somewhere along a wooded roadside, sit in a
Yo,
category
you've got a bit of a car in your tree there, miss. I don't know if you know, but there's a bit of there's a car in your tree, believe it or not.
that most of the footage from those cameras never reaches. Both clips circulate regularly among people interested in unexplained encounters, and both resist the kind of clean resolution that makes footage easy
Are the
to file
police
away
arguing
and move
with
on
each
from.
other?
The first incident began as what looked like a routine DUI crash in Duval County after an intoxicated woman drove into a palm tree. Expecting a standard investigation, 2 officers approached with their body cameras recording. Instead, the encounter quickly became stranger than anticipated. The woman remained unusually calm with music still playing, showing little concern about
Imagine that. You pull up to someone who's very clearly like drunk. They sat there blasting music. Fuck it. Yo, what's good, officer? How you doing, man? For fuck's sake.
the crash. She answered questions with disconnected, contradictory responses, at one point changing the number of drinks she'd consumed from 2 to 9 in the same conversation. From the beginning, her behavior felt less like an ordinary DUI stop and more like something neither officer could readily explain. The officers worked through the standard procedure, running her license, administering field sobriety checks, asking her to follow a finger with her eyes and walk a straight line toward them. It was during the eye test that the first detail registered as genuinely strange. Her eyes drifted in different directions.
What the fuck? Oh! Ew! What the fuck? What? Yo, I'm over here, man. Why is like one... That's fucking
Way that one of
weird.
the officers noted aloud, the kind of movement that doesn't track with normal
What?
impairment and doesn't have an obvious medical explanation.
That's
visible.
fucking crazy. I can cross my eyes, but not go the other way. What?
From the outside. Then, while the officers were managing her on the roadside, the car stereo switched itself back on without anyone near it.
Nah, fuck that. I'm gone. If I'm sat talking to someone doing like DUI tests, her eyes go separate ways, and then the radio turns on with no one in the car, I'm fucking dipping. I'm gone.
Behavior shifted into something even more difficult to categorize. Then, the encounter took an unsettling turn. While checking the woman's identification, an officer reported that the database listed the person tied to her name as having died 3 years earlier. The statement
Oh, fuck no, I'm gone. I'm gone. What the fuck do you mean? Both her eyes are going separate ways, the radio turns on by itself, and then she's reported dead. Nah, I'm gone. I'm out of there.
delivered matter-of-factly, but her response caught attention. She moved toward the officers in a way many viewers later described as gliding rather than walking. No definitive explanation ever followed. Whether it was a database error, mistaken identity, or something else entirely remains unknown. The footage ends without clear answers, leaving behind an incident that continues to raise questions long after the body cameras stopped recording. The second piece of body camera footage takes place in a different setting entirely, a wooded area on the edge of the road during an evening shift, where a patrol officer picked up on sounds that pulled him away from the roadside and toward a stretch of tall grass nearby. The sounds were strange in a way he apparently couldn't immediately identify, and he approached
I just changed accounts, that's why. Oh shit, alright. Thank you for the likes who was liking the stream, I appreciate it.
the grass with the combination of caution and authority that the job requires, calling out to whoever or whatever was moving inside it. He announced himself. He told whoever was in there to come out with their hands up. He called for backup. The grass moved, but nobody stepped out of it. He repeated his commands multiple times, his voice carrying the firmness of someone
probably just an
who was
animal.
fully committed to the procedure, regardless of what the situation feels like from the inside. The grass kept moving. Something was in there, responding to his presence with movement, but refusing to respond with anything else. Whatever was hiding in the grass responded with movement and what sounded unmistakably like a growl. The officer spoke
God.
directly
Yeah,
to
no,
it,
that's an animal,
ordering it
surely.
to come out, but nothing ever emerged. Realizing he needed help, he called for backup. What officers found after entering the grass and how the incident ended has never been made public because the body cam footage cuts off before the search concludes.
What? That's
Body cam
bullshit.
footage released by the police department has circulated widely for how strange it looks on the surface. A man in a full Chuck E. Cheese costume being walked out of a family entertainment center in handcuffs, giant mouse head and all, while the children inside scattered
They're missing Chuck E. Cheese! Imagine being one of them kids, bro.
around him had no idea what was actually unfolding just a few feet away. The footage was recorded on July 23, 2025, and shows officers approaching the mascot at the Scherer Road Chuck E. Cheese location in Tallahassee, Florida, while he was mid-shift, posing for photos with customers the way the job requires. One officer remarked to the other as they walked into the arcade that they were about to detain the mouse, a line that would later become part of why the clip spread the way it did. The man inside the costume was identified afterward as 41-year-old Jermel Jones, an
God damn.
employee who, moments earlier, had been indistinguishable from any other day on the job. The arrest stemmed from a
Yo, free my boy Chuck E. Cheese! Free my boy, bro. He ain't do nothing. Or Chuck E. Cheese didn't. I don't know about the actual guy.
woman's report of unauthorized charges on her debit card. Tracing her last legitimate use of the card to a Chuck E. Cheese birthday party, she reviewed surveillance footage from one of the stores where it had been used and believed she recognized the restaurant's mouse mascot as the suspect. When officers arrived on July 23rd, Jones was entertaining families in full costume. They walked through the arcade to arrest him, and just as they reached him,
Bro. Imagine being a kid and it's like your birthday or some shit and police come in and your parents have taken you to Chuck E. Cheese. They've saved up money. You're taking photos with Chuck E. Cheese. The police come in. Yo, Chuck E. Cheese, put your hands behind your back. You fucking... Mom! They're arresting Chuck E. Cheese! Free him, please! He did nothing wrong!
nearby mother asked if her child could take a photo with the mascot. Officers politely declined and escorted Jones away instead. The arrest didn't unfold as officers had planned. Police later said they intended to escort Jones outside before handcuffing him, but after he allegedly resisted, they detained him inside the restaurant instead. Body cam footage captures officers repeatedly ordering him to stop resisting as families and children looked on. Outside, they removed the oversized
Damn, they got my
Chuck
boy
E.
in it.
Cheese mascot head and placed it on a patrol car before leading Jones away, still wearing the rest of the costume. That surreal image quickly spread online, and after police released the body cam footage, they confirmed the widely shared
Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but like, I just can't get over the fact of like a kid was like, "Can I take a photo with him?" They're like, "No, no, you can't." I know they're doing their job, but they just crashed a poor kid's birthday party.
videos showed the genuine arrest. As for what was actually found on him, the arrest affidavit states that Jones told officers he'd found a credit card earlier that day and had simply been carrying it, insisting he had never used it. Investigators said otherwise, noting that the card recovered from his pocket carried the victim's name and that it was found alongside a receipt matching one of the fraudulent purchases she had already flagged. He was also found carrying a small amount of marijuana and told the arresting officer, apparently unprompted, that he was in the process of applying for a medical marijuana license. He ultimately faced 3
Why have you got your why have you got your weed in the Chuck E. Cheese suit? Like, fucking put it in your locker or some shit. And then if they find it after you've been arrested, then they can't give you shit because it wasn't on your person. It was in the locker.
felony charges tied to the case, covering the theft of the card, the misuse of the victim's identifying information, and the fraudulent use of the card itself, and maintained his denial of wrongdoing throughout the encounter despite what investigators said they'd recovered. Public reaction split along fairly predictable lines once the footage made its rounds, with some viewers uneasy about an arrest playing out in front of small children at a venue built entirely around them, and others pointing out that the officers had handled an unusual situation about as professionally as could be expected. What makes the case memorable isn't any ambiguity in the underlying facts, since the paperwork behind it reads like a fairly ordinary credit card fraud case. What stays with people is simply the backdrop it happened against, an arrest that would have drawn no attention anywhere else, unfolding instead inside a room of balloons, arcade lights, and children who had no way of understanding why
You're
the mouse
free, my boy,
needed a
Chuck E.
police
Cheese.
escort.
Body-worn camera footage from a Dallas police officer captured what would become one of the most talked about moments of the World Cup so far. Not from the pitch, but from a hotel lobby in downtown Dallas the day before Egypt's
this
biggest
year?
match of the tournament.
On July 2nd, 2026,
Yeah,
at
this is this
approximately
year.
11:50 a.m., the Dallas Police Department responded to the Westin at the request of hotel security regarding an individual without event credentials attempting to gain access. Egypt's national team was staying there ahead of their round of 32 match against Australia at AT&T Stadium, and outside, fans had already gathered, hoping for a glimpse of the squad. Fans had gathered outside the hotel, hoping to catch a glimpse of their stars, take photos, and get autographs, and as they got closer to the players in the lobby, it sparked movement from officials present. Inside, the mood was still relatively calm. An Egyptian player was taking photos with a fan, and head coach Hossam Hassan appeared to be trying to move his player along. That's the moment the footage really starts to matter. A DPD officer intervened, tapping Hassan on the chest, and within seconds, the situation escalated to the officer yelling. The official explanation given afterward was straightforward enough on paper. DPD said the incident stemmed from members of the Egyptian coaching staff not properly wearing their FIFA credentials, which the footage shows were
Well, I mean, I guess that's reasonable, but if there's people like taking photos with the people they're with, then I feel like you should just assume that they're meant to be there, I feel like. But I understand where he's coming from, I guess.
not visible around their necks, but what unfolds next in the video is anything but a routine credential check. The body camera shows officers walking across the hotel lobby toward Hossam Hassan and team director Ibrahim Hassan after hotel security waved them over. The unnamed officer approached and put his hand on Hossam Hassan's chest while motioning to his own neck, asking about the head coach's credentials credentials. Ibrahim Hassan, Hossam's identical twin brother and the team's director, stepped between the officer and the coach, clearly trying to defuse things before they went further. The officer yelled and pushed Ibrahim Hassan out of the way. The confrontation quickly turned physical. Ibrahim Hassan pushed the officer back after being shoved, and Hossam Hassan also made contact as a second officer rushed in, sending the coach stumbling toward a potted plant.
What did the plant
Amid
do?
the chaos, Hassan pulled his FIFA credential from his backpack while teammates, staff, and bystanders separated everyone. As the situation calmed, one officer reached for his handcuffs, but another stopped him, saying it was okay. The entire incident lasted less than 30 seconds, yet the footage spread worldwide, drawing attention because it involved Egypt's coaching staff just one day before a World Cup knockout match. The incident quickly divided opinion. Dallas Police Chief Daniel Comeau defended the officer, saying he was
I feel like going up to him and like fucking perking him is like, I feel like that's stupid. But I understand where he's coming from of like, yo, you don't have your credentials. I'm here to like make sure no one gets in when they're not meant to be. So like, I'm gonna need to see some credentials, man. Like that's reasonable, but just ask them instead of just going, fuck you. Like what?
creating space between players and people without visible credentials in a secured area. Critics, however, argued it reflected broader concerns about how some visiting World Cup teams had been treated in the US, pointing to other high-profile encounters during the tournament. Public tension eased soon after. 2 days later, Dallas police shared photos of the officer with members of the Egyptian team, including Ibrahim Hassan wearing his credentials.
He's like harassing him. The team members are like, yo, can I get a photo of you?
Hossam Hassan later confirmed the team had accepted an apology, and
Oh,
Egypt's
okay.
consul general thanked the department for its professionalism. On the pitch, at least, the story ended well for Egypt. The day after the confrontation, the team defeated Australia 4-2 in a penalty shootout following a 1-1 draw, securing the country's first ever World Cup knockout match. The body
YMCA.
cam footage
Sorry.
remains the clearest record of what actually happened in that lobby. 20-some seconds that turned a routine credential check into an international incident, captured not by a phone in the crowd, but by the camera.
This is weird because like I understand both sides of it. Like I understand why his brother got defensive of like, yo, like don't fucking poke him like that. Like don't like push on his chest and then like point at your neck. Just ask them. But then I also understand the police officer's side of it of like, yo, you don't have your credentials. And then his brother started like pushing him and shit. Like that's reasonable. And I'm glad that there was like, yo, I apologize. And it all like settled down and shit.
Flipped
But
to
still.
an officer's own uniform. Some of these 6 cases have clean, documented endings. Others leave questions that will probably never fully close. Either way, they're proof that the most unforgettable body cam footage is rarely staged for a headline. It's just an ordinary shift that suddenly wasn't. If this one got to you, subscribe for more real body cam.
Alright, chat. That was a good video.